Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live APAC. Of course, before we start, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we live, create, and learn on today, paying respects to elders past, present, and emerging. We are back again with Lilian. Lilian, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. It's a bit gloomy and it's absolutely bucketing down rain over here, but it's time for some cozy drawing time.
Yes.
So yeah, can't be more excited.
Yeah, so everybody, if you joined our stream on Tuesday, you would remember that I had all this drawing of a fairy and everything. And, you know, being the person that I am, I want to redo everything, well, kind of from scratch, because I feel like this doesn't really reflect the process that I do when I'm just kind of chilling out and not doing anything for a client. So, I'm not going to take away everything. I think there's things here that has merit, namely the flower, but I think I'm going to try and redo the fairy.
Exciting
without any
stuff.
sort of plan whatsoever.
Yes. No, I think that's great. You told us this just before we went live. Well, not just before, but when we had a pre-stream check-in, and I mean, I was immediately excited, and also I felt very seen, because I want to redo and start from scratch my work all the time, and obviously that's a massive benefit to drawing digitally, unless you just want to start on the next page. But I was thinking, how does that work for a stream? Will that work? And no, absolutely. We can just start again. We make the rules, as Flynn was saying. But speaking of Flynn, of course, he is taking care of us in the chat today and doing all the behind the scenes trickery. But speaking of the chat, if you have any questions for us today, pop them in the chat. So that's either the chat on YouTube or on Behance. We'll be monitoring both for your questions. So if you have any questions about the prompt, or I guess what we're drawing, or just about illustration in general for Lilian, post them in the chat. Flynn will pass them on to me, and I will do my best to ask them to Lilian.
So what I did before is to, I wanted to transform that whole group of layers of the flowers and stuff. So the way to do that is, because there is no kind of a folder function in Fresco, what you do is you make sure you have the layers that you want grouped, doing that by kind of dragging it on top of the layer below. So you make sure that all the layers that you want to move are kind of like stacked in sequence, and you do that, and then you can move them around as a whole, which is what I did. And you can do these things, which is like flipping it around, and once you finish with that, you can just ungroup them and you can carry on. So that's basically what I did.
You know what, Lilian, I might just be about to blow your mind. If you select any of the layers, or any singular layer that you want to have in a folder, and then press the action button, if you hold that down and then click on the other layers, you select more than one, and then you can actually put them in a folder.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's try and do that. So if I click, can you repeat that instruction again?
Yes. So just click on or just tap on one layer, so it's just selected, and then you hold the action button, so that's the circle that we were talking about in the previous stream. Hold that down and then click on more layers while you're holding that down, and then a folder icon appears.
Hey, this is awesome.
There you go. Yeah, that's one of the wonders of the circle action button. I'm not really sure what it's called, but yeah, it's really useful for a lot of things.
Okay.
One of them being making folders.
Yes.
Checking in with the chat. Yes, Johanna here with the tips. That's probably the only tip I can give for now, but I'll do my best to impart my wisdom. But hello, Adam, as well in the chat. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. And yeah, we're just drawing a beautiful lady, a botanist who might be a fairy, might not be a fairy, but just drawing here with Lilian Darmono.
Will be a fairy.
Oh, nice. Love it.
Just not sure of the gender. Could be just gender non-specific.
Could be.
Person. Although yes, whenever I'm drawing just for myself for pleasure, I tend to stick to the feminine forms and shapes. Things that are, traditionally classified as feminine.
Yeah, I think I have a tendency to do that as well, just because I have all the reference material that I need, being myself, but I do really enjoy just I lost my train of thought. I think experimenting and just representing more diverse characters is really important. And gender, of course, is just one of the many ways that we human beings are different. And I think that's wonderful. So when you kind of decided, okay, I want to redo this drawing, was there any particular feeling in the sense that I want to redo it because I don't want to do a full body drawing, I want to redo it because maybe you felt like some lines weren't working, or you just wanted to try something new? What was kind of going on in your mind?
I kind of have an image in my head that is kind of bugging me to try out, i.e. making the face of the character bigger. And I feel like what I did before, because I started out from a sketch, it's normally how I do things when I'm getting paid to do them. I feel like that is not the process that I normally associate with relaxation and doing things for myself. So when I look at it, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why it's a little bit more controlled, a little bit too deliberate, if you like. And decided to try something else.
Fantastic.
And there has been times in the past when I'm doing a live stream and I just go, click your layer. And Flynn will be like, what? What did you just do? Why did you do that? Yes.
Oh man, it's similar, like you're drawing a line again and again, or you're trying to make a shape, and you get to a point where just like, nope, I need to start from scratch. This is not working. I'm not proceeding forward in any shape or form. Let's just start again. And especially when you have an image in mind, or even a mood in mind of what you want to create, realizing that and actually starting from scratch again can be really, really freeing. And sometimes you actually end up drawing the thing that you really wanted to draw better and quicker anyway, just by starting again.
Yeah, we had that conversation on Tuesday about not being worried about making something ugly. It's just the practice is the goal, not the end result in some ways.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when I share my time lapse in Fresco, and you can do that by doing, export. You can live stream obviously, but in publish and export, you can do a time lapse export, and then it will show you you can click play and it will kind of play back everything, that you've done before. When I do those, some of my drawings, you can see how many times I've tried different things and not really finding it, and going back again and trying again and going back again and trying again, which is kind of what I do 80% of the time. Like I very rarely go forward with something and like, oh, okay, this is what I want. Because it depends on what I'm doing. Obviously, I'm just talking specifically these drawings that I do for fun for myself.
Yeah, and I think it was really, it was fascinating how you realized, no, this is my client work process, not my personal process. And I think it's fantastic that those processes are different, because then you really get a feeling of, you know, you're doing something just for yourself and you can really enjoy it. Because when you, for example, draw for work and then also draw for fun, that can be a little bit hard to sort of separate. So one is work and one is fun still. But just having the actual workflow be fundamentally different is a great way to separate the two.
Yeah, it's a nice break.
Absolutely. And we do actually have a quick question from Honey Pro Gaming. And that is, what software are we using? We're using Fresco on the iPad today. And another question here from Flynn is, how do you realize when you've spent too much time on an idea that just isn't working? What do you do?
When I'm doing something for myself and it's not really happening, I'm not really getting anywhere that I feel happy with, that usually happens after the second or third night I pick it up again. So I go to bed the next day around the same time, I revisit and it's still not happening. So after the second or third night, I'm like, all right, this is not happening, abandon it and start a new one. Yeah. But with client work, it's slightly different. I think when something's not working, you realize a lot quicker, like within a couple hours usually. You're like, oh, okay, that's not working. Step away, have a drink of water, get away from the desk, stand up and come back and see what else happens. Yeah, so physically removing yourself from the work setup is really useful.
Yeah, I think that's an underrated trick. If you feel like you're stuck, art block or not, or working on a client piece, just physically leaving the room does wonders. So I can recommend.
Kind of tricks your nervous system. You know, you're like doing a reset.
Yeah, change in surroundings is always good. I will say this, I mean, I knew it would happen, so I'm so glad that we started again, because this is looking very, very nice.
Ew.
And just how they're like inspecting the specimen almost. I mean, my brain is going the science route, that this botanist is collecting rare and unique magical mystical plants. So that just sounds lovely to me. In this way, you really, by focusing in and sort of zooming in almost, you can, well, I feel anyway, that you're getting so much more of the story this way.
Yeah.
Because you see almost exactly what the character is seeing. And with the layout that we had in the previous stream, and you can of course check that stream out after this one, it was more, the audience was very much more of an observer, because it was a full body character, and then the flower or the piece of botany, and this way really focusing in on the subject matter, which is this character who is a botanist, really feels a lot more engaging. And I think it is that because the feeling that you had while you were making was that this doesn't feel right, like just the feeling that, oh, I could do this better, or I could do this different, and trying that out.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
the result, or the work in progress results at least, is, yeah, it is hitting different, and it's doing good.
Fun times. Now
I'm wondering, how many times do you think you would and you might have actually answered this just before, but how many times you would start again? Actually, no, this is a spin on Flynn's question. Realizing that, okay, this isn't working, I'm going to start again. How many times would you start again before you actually abandon the piece altogether?
Give up on the idea. It depends on what the idea is in my head. If something's bugging me and like I feel like drawing, for example, I've been watching this TV show called The Terror. It's about a British expedition that's gone missing in the Arctic in the 1800s. And I feel like drawing something kind of sad and moody and cold because it's in the ice. But I don't quite know what it is. And I started something and abandoned it. And the second night I picked it up again, try to start again, and it's like, oh, it's really not working. So yeah, again, it's kind of similar, like maybe twice, 2 or 3 times. If it's really not working, I'll just come back to it some other week, some other time. But usually it's like, if I look at my Fresco canvases, it's full of, I'll just show you quickly. It's full of things that are kind of started and abandoned and like not continued, you know, like I never continued this one, for example. It's taking too long to open. And this pink one here, that one there, the green stuff on the top left hand corner. Yeah, there's lots and lots of things that have been started and abandoned and not picked up again. And yeah, so yeah, twice maybe. And if it's still not there, move on to something else.
And I think it's important also to not consider that a failure in any way, because you learned something when you created it, and whether it is a new technique or you just created a piece using more cold colors as opposed to warm colors. So I'm saying that more so for myself probably, and perhaps younger viewers in the audience, that just because you stop working on a piece either indefinitely or for a little bit doesn't mean that piece was a waste, because you're always going to learn something new from it.
Yeah, because every single time you draw something, you're building muscle fitness, your sort of like your creative muscle gets exercised, and it would always benefit you down the track. And also it's like, if you go to a restaurant and you try something on the menu, you don't quite like it, you know, you don't see yourself as, oh, what a failure, I should have liked that, you know, grilled chicken that I ordered, you know. You don't beat yourself up about it. And I think this should be seen the same way. You know, it's just having fun. You don't like the taste of something, it's not working out, move on to something else.
Absolutely. We do have another question in chat from Sunyad. So just joined in. Are you using a digital pen and iPad? Can you achieve the same things with iMac?
Right.
Yes and no, right? Because we are using a digital pen on iPad, so we're using the Fresco for iPad. I don't believe that Fresco is available for desktop on Mac yet. But you could create these illustrations either with
Illustrator.
Combination of Illustrator or Photoshop. But this specific app is not yet available for Mac on desktop.
And I would say that before I started drawing things directly onto the glass, I used to do things a lot through Bezier curves. To explain to the audience what a Bezier curve is. So, you know, when you're drawing with the pen tool in Illustrator, where if you want to draw a curve, you basically choose anchor points. So one anchor point there, one anchor point there, and then you kind of draw it by pulling different sort of handles that are attached to those anchor points. Whereas now that I started with Fresco, and because of Fresco now I have a Cintiq for my professional practice, I tend to draw things a lot more as the shape, just like what I move my hand, how I move my hand, that is the shape that I'm drawing, instead of like, drawing it mathematically kind of. And it's kind of changed the aesthetic of my work as well. So that is related to that question that you've just asked.
Do you think that has made your work more organic? Just the fact that you're doing all the shapes yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. So, out of pleasure and fun comes this evolution in the next style of my work. And, personal work kind of feeds into the client work and vice versa.
Absolutely.
In that way. Yeah.
Do you, besides, because the personal work that you do, and specifically, a piece like this, it's very much end of the day sort of winding down on the couch or before bed, but would you set aside time during the day specifically for I guess experimenting in a personal project, or is this kind of the natural time where it's personal project time?
I haven't had the time to do that during work day. I've been fortunate, I guess, because paid work occupies me enough that I do not have time to be making things for myself. But also unfortunate because, there is a part of me that wants to play and not have to make things satisfy someone else's demand. But that's the reality of being a working parent. You're always juggling things that people need you to do rather than things that you want to do. So
it's very true. Oh man, just looking at these colors too, they're wonderful. Where do you usually get your color inspiration from, or is it that you have a set of colors that you generally stick to? Because in your work that you were showing, just all the different projects that you had, there were quite a lot of different palettes. So where do you get them from? I
browse Pinterest for fun, mainly looking at interior design and architecture images just for fun, and I get inspiration from there sometimes. When I look at what's in a shop window at, in the city or different places where I window shop, looking at what people wear and looking at other people's work and say, oh yeah, I never thought of putting that color and that color before, together. So things like that. So anywhere and everywhere. And then when it comes to drawing, you just kind of try different things and see what sticks.
Yeah, you find that the things that you've seen, and I'm known, very well known, to just be, if you take me out on a walk, I will just take photos of absolutely everything. So what would be like a 20-minute walk is like at least a 45-minute walk, because I'm stopping because I've either seen like, oh, the light on that leaf from this angle, which I'm sure infuriates anyone that goes on a walk with me, but it really is finding inspiration from absolutely everything, and just finding the quickest way to document what you've seen, and so you can then reference it later.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of sounds like my son, really. A 10-minute walk turns into 45 minutes because he's always stopping and picking up things. So it's a wonderful quality to have if you don't have to
be somewhere,
be anywhere in a rush.
Yeah, exactly.
Infuriate an adult that's looking after you. If you're an adult yourself and nobody is looking after you, that's great. Do it.
Yeah, I've definitely had to learn to, if I'm going somewhere and I know, I haven't been on that street for a while, there's going to be things that I want to look at. I will leave extra early so I have time to peruse the street before I get to my destination.
Yes.
But enough about me. We do have another fantastic question. A sort of back to basics question, which is great. How did you start out as an illustrator? How did you make the start getting start getting work coming in? Did you just create a profile on Behance and go from there? I'm just curious. So several questions in there.
Yeah.
But
let's unpack that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I did not start out as an illustrator, even though my partner, ever since he met me 18 years ago, he knew that that's what I am as a person. But I didn't know that you can make money out of being an illustrator. So, growing up in Indonesia, you lack a lot of exposure in terms of career paths and outcomes. So what I knew to be the best combination of being creative and making money at that time, growing up in the 80s and 90s in a developing nation, was to do graphic design. So that's what I pursued. That's what I studied. And then when I came here as a uni student, I started doing graphic design as a course, and then had like a work experience. Found that I did not like it at all, like print design. So I switched to multimedia and motion graphics, and I loved it for a while. But then I started meeting a lot of people that are far more talented than me in terms of the dedication and the energy they would put into making an animation look right. And that's when I realized, okay, if I care about craft, I should leave the animating to these people who are much more inclined to do that. And that's when I realized that what I really love doing is actually just nerding out over, colors, texture, forms, and shapes of illustration, static illustration, and not have anything to do with the animating process at all. And from there, I started doing one personal project, and then that got picked up by a few blogs, and they're like, okay, so you can do style frames. So this was back in 2009, before the advertising industry kind of ran out of money. So back then in the US, people used to pay a lot of freelance designers to create pitch boards. So for a really big job, a studio like PSYOP or Buck or different places like that would commission up to 5 or 6 artists. Each person would make 3 or 4 frames, and everything goes into a big presentation. So I used to make a healthy amount of money doing that. It's very stressful work where you have to turn around 3 frames, very elaborate frames, in 3 days. That's kind of like the time frame that was given generally to the average style frame pitch project. And then I started getting really busy doing that, and I did not have time to do anything else, like not doing any more of my own animating. And it kind of like one thing led to another, and then started picking up more and more work as an illustrator. And then about 4 years ago, after doing my own freelance work, doing illustration mainly for the animation industry, I got picked up by the rep I have right now, which is Jackie Winter. And they've kind of opened up doors to other industry that I have never had access before, like, architecture, real estate, government, apps, and not just the animation and motion design industry. So that's kind of like how I started.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm
been
curious.
A roundabout journey.
Yeah, no, most of them are when we look back, to be honest. Mine definitely is as well. I'm curious, when did you, and there might not have been a specific time, but when did you realize that you were maybe ready for an agent, or to be represented by an agency, or
I went back and forth, because at one point I was handling my own queries, and I became a member of the Association of Illustrators in the UK. And they gave a lot of really fantastic pricing advice and negotiation and contract advice. So I was, I was navigating my own negotiations, but with some help. And after doing that for a couple of years, it just got very tiring. And I wrote to Jeremy, the Jackie Winter's founder, and asked him to help me and take me on. And he's like, nope, your folio's not right yet. We're not ready. You're not ready. And but anytime you have something new come up, send it to us. And I kept in touch with him on and off for 8 years. So yeah, taken 8 years for a spot to finally open up, that they could see the kind of style that I'm producing at that moment being commercially viable. And yeah, I would say that doing my own negotiation for close to 10 years is really helpful, because it gives me insight into what makes a good agent and what I need from an agent versus what I need to do myself. So that's really, really useful.
Yeah, that's an important distinction, or just an important question as well to ask. If you are considering representation by an agency, not only to think, oh, what can I sort of do with or for them, but what can they give you? Because if you already have the knowledge and the network, then maybe you don't need one. But if
yeah, because
there isn't a balance,
they take a 30% cut. So that's a healthy amount of money that's going to them. You want to make sure that they're worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, every agent is different, of course, but I think in general, from what I know, the industry standard is between 25 to 30%. So you want to know where that money's going, how they're spending it, how are they going to promote you as an artist? Are you going to be lost in amongst other names on their roster?
Yeah.
Talk to as many people as possible if you can about what the agency is like. Things like that. Just always do your own research and keep your eyes open. And it's not a marriage set in stone. It's like, if it's not working for you, then you by all means call it off, and vice versa, I guess.
Sorry about that. Just taking in the music again. We are figuring it out with the music still today. So if it is a little bit loud, chat, do let us know. But more importantly, you could say if you have any more questions for us, do let us know in the chat. We are beyond the halfway point, I would say. And happy to take any additional questions that you have. And we did have in the chat someone starting in UI and UX as a developer, and Flynn helped them out as well, which is great. Now, the next sort of predictable working on a piece question that I have is, when do you know that it's done?
I am not
They
sure.
ask to be never.
You can develop a sense of like, that's good enough, move on. I guess it depends on personality types. I know some people that would keep laboring over something over and over and over until it's perfect. I am not like that. I prefer to improve through volume. So I absolutely do not believe in that saying, you're only as good as the last piece you've made. That's not the kind of person I am.
No, if that were true, what I created last is well, it's not bad, but it's very unique, the last thing that I made. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, do your best, but sometimes it's a lot healthier and a lot more satisfying to just call it done and not over polish something, because you're just torturing yourself.
Yeah, well, the saying goes, you can completely forget everything that I just did. No, but it's the sense that, yes, you can polish something till the cows come home and the thing isn't necessarily like great, and so you're really just being like Sisyphus with the
Boulder.
boulder, you know, you're just going up the same hill again and again. But it can be really freeing just to say, well, you know what, this is achieving what I wanted it to achieve. So let's move on.
Exactly.
But I'm wondering, chat, do we have a name for this lovely character, or even a name for the foliage, the botany surrounding them? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, with a piece like this, obviously it's using very cool colors, and it's a cool palette. Would you use the hue saturation tool to kind of try out different looks for the entire piece, or once you sort of set out on a color range or sort of a general palette, do you tend to stick to that?
Yeah, I tend to stick to that, because you can see that I'm going back to the history here of like what else, what other colors have I used, and just kind of picking from what I've already done before to try and keep things consistent. Again, that is just the kind of person I am. I prefer to work with what I've already got and see where it takes me.
Saves time too. Like if you've already color picked a couple of colors at the start, and if you're gonna do the eyedropper tool in the artwork as well, you probably sometimes you'll miss a little bit, or you'll capture sort of just the spot where maybe two colors are next to each other, and then you just find completely new colors, but they all still belong within the same range and palette that you're working with. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, in my professional work, I prefer to keep things limited to maybe 4 or 5 hues at most. Hues, not just colors. So within those hues, there will be tints and shades. But yeah, just keeping it minimal.
Yeah, it's interesting
kind of like
how
my graphic design training, maybe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the less is more philosophy, or just, you know, you have your hero color and then maybe one or two other ones definitely would come from the graphic design side of things. It is interesting just how and it makes perfect sense how different your personal work is to your client work, just in terms of, okay, well, I'll use a very small amount or a relatively small amount of colors for client work, but then with personal work, just use all the colors, as many colors as possible. I'm sure that is just really, really freeing, and just makes part of the process even more enjoyable to feel like you're not limited by what you would do sort of professionally.
Yeah, again, like not really caring whether I'm making a mistake, because that's kind of the fun of it. Just to do whatever.
Here's oh, you were going to say?
Just do whatever. Don't be afraid if it's a mistake.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have another great question from Flynn. What do you do to entertain yourself while creating? Do you find immersing yourself in music or podcasts or films help you work?
I feel like this is asked because he already knows the answer. I watch horror films.
Oh, I see.
I watch horror films while I work. And that series I just told you about, The Terror, I don't know why. I'm obsessed by it. So I feel like my brain chemistry has been changed forever by it, and I can't stop watching it. Like I've done 10 runs of these 10 episodes about 19th century British men going to the Arctic and getting lost and dying and starving. Yes.
Goodness me. It does I can, to an extent, understand you completely, because I had periods where I would just listen to true crime podcasts while I was working or just doing anything. And it's something about having something very exciting or very dramatic or very intense happening, but I am by no means involved. So I can get like the adrenaline or the dopamine from, oh, there's a situation right now that's happening.
Yes.
But there'll be no consequences to me. And I can just get on with my day or get on with my drawing. So I do understand. I'm not a horror movie fan, perhaps unfortunately, but I do get what you mean.
Yeah, I feel like the news is a lot more horrific than any horror film I can watch. So, you know, it's a bit of an escape to me, because I can't really escape the news. It's happening. It's all around us. We're about to have an election here in Australia.
Yeah.
And all of that. So I escape by watching horrible stuff that is not as horrible as real life. Yes. That's what I do. I can't do music. I can't do podcasts or audio books. I can't concentrate that way. I don't know why. I just get too absorbed in the podcast and then stop working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention to what they're saying when it's a podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. And the same thing with audiobook. I just end up pausing it and then going back time and time again. And then the work doesn't get done. So yes. Horror movie for me.
Oh goodness. It's funny, we've been talking on previous streams just so much about, it's important to, you know, bring more silly things into the world and do silly work and do things just for fun. And the dichotomy of watching, you know, gruesome horror movies while creating beautiful work is, I think, is a perfect combination of that. You're doing something
Completely bizarre.
Yeah, very, very bizarre. But
very
I
bizarre.
think, yeah, it's important to do bizarre things as well. Bizarre and silly.
What was that the other night? I started watching an animal nature show, and it just got too upsetting and I had to stop. Like baby animals getting separated from the parent. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Nope. An axe murderer, however. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, goodness me. We do have 13 minutes left today. Time does fly. And that's another thing I do love about personal projects, especially ones where you're just sitting down to draw to relax, is that time just disappears, for me anyway. And it is exactly what has happened today. Time has just flown by. But it has been wonderful. So if you do have any last minute questions, let us know and we'll ask them if we have time.
I'm doing that new trick. Doing it with a folder.
I'm so glad that I was able, you know, to teach the guests something. That just makes me very proud. You're very welcome.
It's changed my life. Don't have to do that silly nesting thing anymore. This works just as well.
And what you can do then also, if you already have a folder that you've made, you can then also just hold down a new layer and then drag it in. So that then places it at the top. So what you were doing with nesting really was just a folder.
Right.
So then you can always add things. You can also do a clipping mask onto the folder. So you could do all your lines, then put those in a folder and then a clipping mask on top, just like you would in Photoshop. And do the same with masking as well. So yeah, it's a really nifty tool when you know that it's there.
Yeah, I would encourage people to explore, because I'm not the kind of person that explores the different tools, and setups and the settings. I just want to know the minimum amount that I have to know in order to be able to make something immediately. I'm a little impatient that way, but yeah, when you have the brain conditioning that allows you to explore, do it, because you never know what will be useful to you.
Well, on that note, do you have a favorite feature in Fresco?
I would say that my favorite feature is the paint bucket, I think.
Ooh, nice.
It's I don't know why, it's just really satisfying to just kind of draw a shape and then drop the paint bucket in it, and it's like, boom, it fills up the color.
It's instant gratification.
Yeah, it definitely does scratch that part of my brain.
Fantastic. And what we might do as well is have a look at the time lapse, because we did mention it in there, and I think it would be really interesting to look at the time lapse of this piece. So I'm going to make a note for Flynn to let me know when we have, let's say, about 5 minutes left, and we can scrub through the time lapse and just see how far we came from when we started on Tuesday.
Okay.
Here's a niche question that I just thought of. Do you sign your personal work, or do you just leave it without a signature?
I never do that. I probably should. Hey, I don't know. Should I?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that a signature is like, okay, it's done, I sign it, then I can't touch it again. But I also know that, well, but what if I do want to like go back to it? Like maybe I just found a new way of doing something and I can just, reuse that piece or something.
I think the answer, the truth of it is that in the back of my head, I know that signing it will make it too precious. And that's not the attitude I want to have with my craft. It's kind of the same reason why I don't enter competitions or award shows, because it just distracts you from doing it for the sake of it.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. And funnily enough, Flynn has a question that lines up perfectly to this. What makes a piece of work important to you?
That's a hard one. Thanks, Flynn. If I still really like it after a while, that's the first reason. Second reason, if I discover a new technique or feel like I have taken myself out of a plateau in terms of skill and aesthetic and like personal artistic development, I can think of a few pieces in my lifetime that is like that has given me that, that because of doing those pieces, I've become someone new. If it touches someone in a particular way, in a meaningful way, and when, so that's number 3. Number 4 is like if the client comes back and say, thank you for that really helped us too, which is kind of the last 2 reasons are kind of similar, I guess. Yeah.
That is a lovely answer to a very deep and meaningful question with 5 minutes to go. No, I agree. These are very good reasons.
I think, if you're doing this for a living, you gotta take yourself out of the artist being superior kind of mentality, because in the end, you're creating a piece of visual that someone is paying you to make, and there is a purpose to it. There is another life to it beyond what you see and what you deal with right here and now. So it's important not to lose sight of that.
No, absolutely. And do you think similar sort of, I guess, checkpoints apply to personal work as well? You know, if you learn something new, that's what would make a personal piece important?
Yeah, or when it captures my feeling at that time. So a little bit like a time capsule nature to it as well.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, like lockdown, you know, things that I made during lockdown are, you know, looking at the pictures that I made, it's like, oh, I still remember how I felt during winter of 2020 when things were so bleak. And Victoria, you know, went into that really hard second lockdown. It was so brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really precious how work that we've made can really bring us back to the time that we made it. And it isn't quite that time with, you don't get that feeling with every piece, I would say, but just some of them are they hit a nerve. But we are at the less than 5 minutes point. So I'm wondering if we could maybe show the time lapse of how this was made, so you just can see all the different stages that we went through.
There's a cat picture. Yeah, I was just mucking around.
Yeah. You're doing a bit of a warm-up with the cats. And here's the initial sketch that we were working with, where it was a full body illustration of a botanist fairy. But now shortly, I think, after this has a little bit of color, if I remember correctly, make the big switch. But you can see how this lovely image and lovely illustration, I saw you already were zooming in a little bit with the character in the second iteration, and then we come to this, which is more of a more intimate, more close up, more inviting perhaps, and I think really communicates more the feeling that I imagine you wanted to communicate. Ta-da! And there we go. Fantastic. Well, with that, I will say thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you for everyone in the chat asking your wonderful questions. Yes, Flynn, you asked some wonderful questions as well. But most importantly, of course, thank you, Lilian, for joining us for these 2 streams. Relaxing and drawing personal work. It has been wonderful. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week for more illustration. Bye.
Bye.